Welcome to 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the fruit of the Spirit with Kurt Bjorklund.
Ephesians 5:9 uses the word goodness, the word we're examining this week in the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5. And it uses it again with the word fruit. It says this, start in verse 8, Ephesians 5:8. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light. For the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord, verse 10. Verse 11, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So here there's this contrast, dark and light. And it says that the fruit of light, in other words, the outgrowth of the light of God, is goodness, and it's righteousness, and it's truth. So this is pointing to something more than just integrity. And what I mean by this is integrity or wholeness can often be thought to be something that just means consistency. You're the same across all things. But here this is pointing to a higher standard, and it's saying that there is something such as darkness and there is something such as light, and the fruit of light will actually produce this thing called goodness, righteousness, and truth. In other words, as you are exposed to who God is, you will say, what I want is what is good and righteous and truthful. I don't know if you've ever been in a restaurant where when you walk in, it's so dark that you have a hard time seeing. And what happens is, over the course of some time sitting in the restaurant, is you get used to the dark. And when you get used to the dark, when light shines, it's almost too much. Maybe this happens to you in the morning if somebody opens the door and a light comes on and you're still asleep and you're used to the dark and the light shines. It's jarring. It's almost unsettling. And I think the idea here is that light never gets used to the darkness. Instead, it is always craving what is good, what is righteous, what is truthful. And as I was just thinking about this concept, good and the light and the dark, what I realized is that the longer you live without the light of Christ, the less goodness will appeal to you, and the more you will be comfortable with the phrase here in Ephesians 5:8, where it says, you were once the darkness, but now you are the light of the Lord. Live as children of the light. And so the fruit of the Spirit produces this desire to say there is a way that God works in this world that is better than the alternative, that is better than the way that things work when left to the darkness. And certainly you can see this in our world today. And it really doesn't depend on you being particularly spiritual, but because my guess is you have seen evidences of darkness all around you in this world. And what's interesting is progressives and conservatives have different definitions of what the darkness is. And both of them have an air of truth. And what I mean by this is often conservative people will talk about the darkness of the breakdown of the family or the evil of lives not mattering with the unborn. And progressives will talk about the evil of injustice and leaving people behind and some of the global and systemic issues that cause poverty and saying this is not right. And my point is to say that there is goodness that is a higher standard that God calls us to, and a longing for that is part of the fruit of the Spirit. And here's why I bring up the progressive conservative divide. If your sense of goodness is only tied to a political party's agenda rather than being able to see the goodness that is yearned for from both sides, then there's a sense in which your definition of goodness has become more politicized rather than biblical. Now you might say, well, there's nothing on the other side that's good. And I understand that thought process. But again, what I'm driving at here is that maybe you've gotten so used to the darkness that you can no longer say there's good that God is calling forth that is a universal good that people should be able to see. And again, you may disagree with the particular policies, the particular way in which it's addressed. But the goodness of God is saying, I'm responding to who God is. And it means that there's opportunity for all people. And there's a valuing of all lives. There's a valuing of what God has laid out as the path forward. And so that's the invitation of goodness.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.